In Sichas Sarhan, Rabbi Nachman's Wisdom, section number 21, the Rebbe starts out by saying that on Rosh HaShanah, a person has to be wise. And what's the definition of wise? The Rebbe says that a person has to be wise by thinking good thoughts, positive thoughts, specifically of how Hashem Yisbarach, the blessed Creator, will be good to us in the coming year. Now, there's many areas of life in which we would like Hashem to be good to us. On a personal level, there's health, there's wealth, satisfaction, and the things that we do in the life we live, assuming, of course, that it's a positive life, a Torah-led life. And also on a family level, we should have shalom bayis, we should have peaceful relationships with our spouse, if we're married, parents, siblings, children, etc. Neighbors too. So it's good to be shochein toiv, a good neighbor, and to have good neighbors. And many other areas globally. If I wave away the flies, you'll excuse me because we are at the lake here in Uman for this particular edition of Joe Breslov. And nationally, we want Shalom al Yisrael. We want to have peaceful relationships in our shul with other members of where we go to daven every day or weekly, as the case may be. We want peace among all the different groups within our nation, within our particular subgroup. Let's say you're a Breslov or Chassid, all the different ways of looking at Breslov, they should all be, peaceful with one another, and between Hasidic groups, and between Hasidim and non-Hasidim, etc., etc. There should be true peace among Klal Yisrael. Because if we'll start making peace among ourselves, then that will ripple out strongly to the rest of the world, and other nations will make peace among themselves and among the other nations. And then we can see the coming of the Mashiach, Mir Hashem, even this coming year of 5785. But it all starts with each one of us being wise to think of how Hashem will be good to us and how it will help us to not only have what we need and perhaps what we want, if that's good for us, but also that we'll think clearly and correctly and will behave with our fellow Jews and our fellow human beings in a peaceful and civil way, and so that the world will become a much better place. Right? And that would be really, really nice, wouldn't it? The Rebbe says we also have to be v'simcha, we have to be happy on Rosh HaShanah, which is a curious thing, because Rosh HaShanah is Yom Hadin, the Day of Judgment, and rightfully, and it's quite human to be a little nervous, apprehensive when you're being judged, even for something that's not life or death, an audit, God forbid, by the IRS, or any sort of test, any time a person is being called out for why he did or didn't do particular things, right? So how is it that, or why should we be asked, and why should the Rebbe suggest us that we be b'simcha, that we be happy on Rosh HaShanah? So the reason for that, I believe, is that Hashem Yisbarach himself, the blessed Creator, was very extremely happy on the first day of creation, on Rosh HaShanah. Right? Chazal tell us that when the Mishkan was built, was erected and finally put into operation way back when in the desert after we had left Egypt on the first day of Nisan. So the Midrash tells us that the simcha, the joy that Hashem had on that day, as it were, was the same was as powerful a joy as he had on the day of creation, which was Aleph Tishrei, when Adam Rishon and his wife Chava were created. Right? So if Hashem was happy with creation at the very beginning, that should tell us something. Now, we all know and believe that God is omniscient. He sees the future. So he knew that there would be wicked people who rape and kill and torture, and that there would be the slavery of the Jews for 410 years in Egypt, but really bad slavery, backbreaking and psychologically debilitating, etc., etc., and that there would be a destruction of the first temple and the second temple, and there would be a 2,000 plus year exile. And even so, God was happy when he created the world, because he also knew there would be big tzaddikim like the Avis and the Yemois, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, the Shvatim, Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKohen, Yoshua ben Nun, and the Tanoim, the Amoraim, and you and me, that we would also be here to do mitzvahs. Best, we would do things that we shouldn't do, things that we're not proud of. But even so, Hashem said, okay, I'm creating it. It's going to be good. I'm happy with this. And so we on Rosh HaShanah also should be happy. Yeah, there will probably be, let's call them quote-unquote destructive, negative happenings during the year from without, things that take place outside our purview, things that are not our responsibility, and things that are, things that we ourselves also do that we'll regret, whether right away or at some point after we do them, or say them, or think them, right? But nonetheless, on Rosh Hashanah itself, hey, this is another year, a lot of opportunities to do mitzvahs, and what's that about? A very big part of doing mitzvahs and living a Torah life is being constantly connected to Hashem, constantly aware that you're in that presence, that divine presence. So we have to be b'simcha as well, because we are part of the creation. We are the purpose of creation, and to a certain degree, we are contributors to creation. And if the boss with a capital B was happy, so we also ought to be happy about that. And the Rebbe also says to cry in Rosh Hashanah. This crying, ideally, as the Rebbe says elsewhere in Likutei Moharan, is B'shimcha Yigilin Kol Hayom. In your name, God, we cry throughout the day. The first letters, the Rosh Tevot of B'shimcha Yigilin Kol Hayom, rejoicing in Hashem's name. The first letters of these 4 words spell out the Hebrew word bechia, crying. We should cry tears of joy that we are privileged to be Jews, and that we're privileged to have the opportunity day in and day out to live a Jewish life. To you and yours, and to all of Klal Yisrael, where we have Ksiva Chasima Toiva, we should be signed and sealed into the Sifron Shel Tzadikim, and may we be privileged to fulfill and to live by and practice Tmimus and Pshitas simply and honestly the advice of Rebbe Elazar, Rabbi Nachman ben Pega.